Nosey Nancies is a true crime podcast based in Austin, Texas. Due to its graphic nature, listener discretion is advised.
Oh, Nosey Nancies, tell us more. Murders, mysteries, and Texas lore. Tune in tight for the latest feat. Each episode is a killer treat. Oh, Nosey Nancies, tell us more. Murders, mysteries, and Texas lore. Tune in tight for the latest feat. Each episode is a killer treat.
Oh, okay, so are we ready right now?
We're ready.
We're back!
Hey, all you nosies. I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Alequah, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Nosey Nancies podcast.
Alequah posted it the other day, but the Google AI knows who we are.
I know. I love how no people know who we are, but the Google AI does. And
AI
I feel like that's
knows everything.
kind of a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They even spelled your name correctly.
Well, I think what it is it takes little excerpts from things that we write down. And the only person that's spelling my name correctly on the internet, and let's face it, is me. So it's just taking things from what I've posted about the podcast. But it's pretty cool because I didn't think we'd ever get to that point where you could just Google us and AI will do a little razzle dazzle of us.
Yeah, they put some respect on our names on Google AI.
Yeah.
And I prefer to think that it knows how to spell your name because even though Google's stealing all of our personal and private information, they are very considerate. So
yeah.
Thanks, Google.
The last person that stole my identity did not know how to spell my name, so they actually got caught pretty quick.
Did you actually have your identity stolen?
Yeah, people try to steal my identification and my bank account, and they're like, "Oh, this bitch is negative. Never mind."
Please, if you steal my identity, do something with a girl's credit.
I know. I was
maybe,
can you
maybe respectfully pay on
my
something
debt?
You open up?
No, I think if anybody tried to open up anything in my name, they would just be declined. Oh, God, this is so embarrassing at 40 years old. But, I tried to, finance a new phone, and they were like, no. You're telling me no? Are you joking? Anyway, so I really have to have a hard reflection on my life, I guess.
I mean, honestly, same.
Let's be real clear. You don't really need good credit. You have Todd, so...
I mean, Todd has a great credit. And
I know!
And I give that to him because I wish I had the same.
I know, he worked really hard. I really just am ready for y'all to adopt me. And then, nothing weird. You don't have to breastfeed me. I'm already, it's fine. I can bathe myself and stuff like that. But it would be really nice if you guys did adopt me, because then I could also hang on that good credit score, I could get some of that good, you know what I'm saying?
Some of that maybe just good credit.
Yeah, good credit. Yeah, I don't, just bring it up. Bring it up a little bit, I don't know, over a romantic dinner. Just maybe
romantic dinner. Alequah.
Yeah,
she really needs our support.
You're wouldn't it be really sweet if we woke up in the morning and we heard the loud, heavy pitter-patter of Alequah's feet, of a grown-ass woman's feet in the house,
and I just hear you in the other room being like, "Oh God," just like that.
Yeah.
That's our alarm every morning.
Yeah. Me just hacking up a lung in the bathroom, early morning cough sesh.
Love it.
You would hate it. I would be out immediately.
Do it. Do you ever mess living together.
You know what? Like, one of my fondest memories, I think, of being in my early 20s was, do you remember that time we got pumpkins and we carved our little pumpkins? I made an Elvis.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was like the best. I remember that day so well. It was such a nice day outside. You and I
Yeah.
had our little playlist going on. We were outside carving pumpkins on that 70s retro like brick uh front porch that they had at the Bullard house.
Yeah.
I love that. What a great day that
No, I
was.
think about that. I think about that time literally every fall.
I just miss like being out on the porch in the morning together and smoking cigarettes and
Yeah.
talking, you know what I
Just chain
mean? And
smoking,
watching
drinking
just chain
coffee.
smoking. Yeah, God. I remember one time I went to a concert with Trey and Lupinetti and Roxy,
Lipinetti.
and I got fucking trashed. I was trashed, and I stumbled into the house, and your mom was on the couch, of course, watching who knows, probably Columbo or some bullshit,
Yeah,
which
whatever.
I actually love Columbo, but anyways, and she was like, and I was like swaying, and she's like, "Are you wasted?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm so wasted." And I went up, and I was like, "I have to go puke." So I ran upstairs, which I don't know how I was ever able to run up those stairs, but I did a lot, and I puked so silently that your mother was so impressed with my
I,
throwing up skills.
I
And
love
like
it.
I know I came downstairs and she goes, "Did you just go puke?" I go, "Yeah, I did." She was like, "You are the most quietest puker I have ever heard in my entire life." And I go, "Thank you." I was
Thank
like,
you so
years of growing
much.
up in the country. I know, I made your mother proud that
I
day, you know.
know. Yeah, I've learned if you have to puke, just open your mouth and let it fall out.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are going to know.
And I don't want people to know that I'm a human. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
I'm
I,
okay with them questioning my, if what I really am, you know? I'm okay with them not knowing that I'm just five raccoons in a trench coat, you
yeah.
know? So should we talk about what season 3 is going to be?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk
Hopefully,
about it.
um, I'm sure that most people are familiar with the Innocence Project, and if not, then we're going to tell you about it.
I just wanted to talk about why we decided to do this for a second because with season 2 and the finale, both part 1 and part 2, that really struck a chord with me,
Yeah.
and I think it did with you too, about how just corrupt the judicial system is and
Yeah.
how easily people are put into prison for crimes that they didn't commit because of a lot of things like lack of physical evidence,
Right.
lack of financial funds to even afford a good counsel, the corruption of the police department, lack of knowing your own rights. Like after we did the yogurt shop murders and especially the Hector Polanco case, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, Jasmine, we have to do the Innocence Project.
Yeah, because they say you're innocent until proven guilty. I think we all know that that's the way it's supposed to go,
Mm-hmm.
but that is seldom the case. If those are still the rules that the judicial system is
So,
playing by is playing by, then the research that's being done to prove your innocence is for naught. Like they're not doing, a lot of people aren't doing their jobs. There are so many politics now in the justice system and so
yeah,
many egos that people are trying to protect, that proving a case is of the most importance, and it doesn't matter at this point if they have the right guy. If they can convince a jury of 12 that they've
Yeah.
got the right guy, then that's all that's needed.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that it really, a lot of the times it boils down to like, obviously, like the better the lawyer, the more expensive they are. And what level of a lawyer can you afford?
Right.
And honestly, for most people, it's not a very good one.
Yeah.
Not that they don't try their hardest, they probably do, but
Well,
you
and,
know,
a lot of people who, I'm not saying definitely all, but a lot of people who commit crimes that they try to finger are in lower income brackets. So it's
yeah,
not as
yeah,
if they're able to retain a high quality lawyer with all of this experience. They're most likely getting a public defender who
yeah.
has, 20 other cases that they're working on at the same time.
I think that we're going to see this a lot in these cases that we're going to talk about, but I mean, it definitely does. I think it's going to show a lot of proof of systematic racism and
Yeah.
how and even classism and
Yeah.
how those two are very much entwined with each other. But I mean, we don't have to get into that right now because this is our first episode and like,
Yeah.
you know,
You can
but
follow along.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, but it is an issue. It is a problem.
Hmm.
And you're right. When we came up with the judicial system, I think that they wanted the saying, innocent until proven guilty to be the, the the outline in when trying to close a case. But the
Yeah.
problem is that I think we all know that it's actually you're guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know,
The proof that's required to get a guilty verdict is substantially less involved, or is allowed to be substantially less involved than it takes to actually prove someone's innocence.
I think it's kind of case by case too. I think a lot has like if you look at Casey Anthony like her case like I think that she was like let off because there wasn't enough evidence, but also because she was a cute white girl.
Yeah. No, I agree
And
with
that
that
might that
wholeheartedly.
might be a little controversial, but I think that's
Well,
the truth.
and that is the truth, because if you look at someone like Casey Anthony, who repeatedly lied to the police, who has been known, even by her family, to be manipulative and I don't even want to say stretch the truth to be kind. Like she's a bald-faced liar.
Yeah.
Everybody who knows her knows that. Oh, I don't know. Poor me. Like, oh my God, my daughter's missing, but I'm gonna go and go out to the bar and do this and this, and like flouse around, flouse around,
Plows around. What
flouse
is
around.
that?
That's like one of the oldest lady things that I've ever said.
I've never heard that before.
I don't know. I was
I
just thinking about being a floozy, and I'm like, flousy?
I love
Flouse.
that. I love that during our break I turned 40 and you turned 85.
I
That's all I
know.
have to
I know.
say.
I'm sitting here crocheting while we're
I know.
talking. I'm making a little basket for Todd.
Yeah. Oh God. For his golf balls. Is that what
Yeah.
we've turned into? Oh, jeez. I quit. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah,
Ugh.
and if that were anybody else, then it would have been like, oh hell no, like life in prison. You for sure did it.
Yeah. If that would have been a poor person of color, they would have
Yeah,
been immediately thrown into prison for life, probably.
yeah.
So, wait, hang on. Oh, God. You know how when you have those burps and they don't want to come out, so they're stuck in your chest? That just happened to me.
Oh really?
Yeah. But then you just kind of breathe and it goes away.
I have those, but I get brain freeze in the chest. What is that called?
I think that's called a heart attack, but I'm not entirely sure. For this
Whatever.
season, we are going to be doing the same format that we've been doing this whole time, where Jasmine will have one person and I'll have another person. Jasmine is going to be doing a person who's helped out of the system by the Innocence Project, who
Who was
had a
serving a
life.
life sentence.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a person who was death row sentence. So it's kind of a bittersweet, because I don't know for sure, because I don't know every person, that I'm going to do, but as far as what I am assuming, a lot of these cases are going to have, are still going to be cold
Right.
cases of the
Right.
victims. You know what I mean? So yeah, the justice was served in releasing, an innocent person, but the case of the person who was killed or
Is still
murdered or
unsolved.
whatever is probably still going to be unsolved. So that is kind of the downside of this whole thing. But it'll be good for us to do this so that we can get the word out and try to, like, maybe perk some interests. And because it isn't just Texas, maybe we'll be able to reach a high, a more broad audience, and then maybe they can spark a little interest in cases that are in their home state or their hometown.
Yes. Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
Bring some light to some things that are
yeah,
going on within the legal system in their own neck of the
yes,
woods.
exactly.
So, the Innocence Project was founded only in 1992. So, really, it hasn't been in existence for a super long time.
Mm-mm.
It was founded by Barry Schneck and Peter Neufeld at the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law, which is at Yeshiva University. It is a national litigation and public policy organization that has dedicated itself solely to exonerating wrongfully accused individuals through DNA testing, and other scientific advancements that are now available for use,
Mm,
and trying to help kind of reform the criminal justice system to prevent these future injustices of wrongfully accused individuals being sentenced and letting the real criminals walk free. Their kind of policy is that if DNA testing is able to prove a guilty verdict, then it should just as easily be used to try to prove innocence. It
yeah,
is
I agree.
estimated that between 2.3% and 5% of all prisoners in the US are innocent. Um, and by those standards, if 1% of all prisoners are innocent, that would mean that there are currently more than 20,000 innocent people in prison. So you can ask the Innocence Project to get involved in your case. They're not equipped to handle case applications by email or over the phone. You have to get in contact with them. Go on their website. They'll explain to you how to do it. All correspondence is going to be handled by mail or by overnight delivery. They
Hmm.
will basically take each case, get as much information as they can, and then they have an evaluation staff that researches the potential case, trying to find out if they can do anything with it. So if you do know someone who you think has been wrongfully convicted, please do research for the Innocence Project, because I'm sure that they would be happy to help. And also, if you don't know of anybody who was wrongfully accused, but you do believe in their in their service and what they're doing for our innocent prisoners. They do receive about 44% of funding from individuals. So please
Yeah.
feel free to donate to their cause. Nearly 80% of the funds that they receive go directly towards the Innocent Project's programs to free and protect the innocent and prevent wrongful convictions from happening in the future.
Yeah, and I think since they've started, they've, at least for the death row people, they've gotten 20 people off of death row,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I
So
think is amazing.
they are doing amazing, amazing work for not only for the wrongfully accused individuals and their families and children, but also for the victims of these
The crime.
crimes,
Yeah, and
because they don't have some rando who they've never met sitting in prison while someone who actually did them harm is walking free.
right, right. I think too, like, I don't know about every case, but the case that I'm going to talk about today, he was very much, after he was released, he was very much involved in trying to find the person who actually did commit the crime, and
Oh,
he,
nice.
yeah, and he was very outspoken about it, and he has been outspoken about it. He's now an author and a storyteller, basically.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the person that I'm going to be talking about is a man by the name of George Allan Jr. On the evening of February 4th, 1982, a young woman was discovered dead in her home by her live in boyfriend, who was the one that contacted the police. Already.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, he did it.
Yeah. The autopsy showed that the cause of death was multiple stab wounds and incised wounds to the victim's back and neck. And there was evidence consistent of sexual assault.
Ugh, God.
Initially, the police had suspected a well-known sex offender by the name of Kirk Eaton, whose brother actually resided in the same apartment building as this couple, and who himself only lived like 5 to 6 blocks away. So that was someone who they thought initially could have been the one who did it. And then, of course, the victim's boyfriend, who she lived with, and her husband, who she was separated from. So she's got a husband who they're separated, and a boyfriend who is a live-in relationship.
Boyfriend, yeah.
Those were the
This is
oh, go ahead.
That's already like, oh, with the guy, like the registered sex offender or whatever, like this is already giving like Raul Meza Jr. vibes.
Exactly.
Like, you know that there's a predator who has a connection to that,
area.
Apartment complex. Yeah. Like, you already know. Oh, okay.
That, in I'm sure everybody's opinion, is three suspects who most likely make a lot of sense,
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
any digging.
Right. Right. Just off the top of your head.
Yeah. On March 14th, just by a completely chance encounter, police approached George Allan Jr. several blocks from the victim's house, thinking that he was Kirk Eaton, the sex offender, and brought him in for questioning.
Okay, so they apprehended this man because they thought it was the sex offender.
They thought that he was the sex offender, the convicted sex offender. Which, by the way, why is this convicted sex offender out walking around?
Well, no, but if what I don't understand is, if you have a registered and convicted sex offender, they usually have pictures.
Yeah.
Right? And usually if you're a police officer or a person on the job, like, you usually have eyeballs that can see.
Yeah.
Whether usually your vision is pretty okay.
Right person. I think that's part of the training.
So you would think that if there's an actual database with the person's fucking ID, in the photo or like a photo with who is able to identify the guy. Like, why
Yeah.
the fuck are they getting him mixed up?
Right, exactly. Just pulled some random ass man off the street, who in this case was poor George Allan.
Oh my god, dude.
So
Okay.
they bring him in for questioning. Detective Herbert Riley later realized that they brought in the wrong guy, but still initiated the interrogation of Mr.
Uh-uh.
George Allan.
No. 100% already. Already. That's such a fucked up.
Like, what are
Like,
you doing?
it's already corrupted. Are you kidding?
You're wasting your
Oh my
time,
god.
the investigative officer's time, the taxpayers' money. Get
And just
yourself together.
and morally, like, it's just unacceptable.
Like, who is like, oh, this isn't the dude, but I'll talk to him anyways?
Yeah,
Why?
no, that's laziness. They're
Yeah.
just being lazy at that point.
So George, unfortunately, had an extensive history with severe mental illness. He was hospitalized for schizophrenia, and eventually he did confess to raping and murdering the victim through
Yeah, well, we all
coercion of
yeah.
the
Yeah,
interrogation.
right. Yeah, that seems to be a pretty used tactic
Yeah.
within the force, it seems like.
The detective, Herbert Riley, had convinced George that they had evidence against him, which was untrue, of course. And his claims of being innocent were, just not going anywhere. So he eventually confessed. Since you have the proof, I must have done it.
Yeah, and also this man is like, he suffers from a mental illness,
Yeah.
that a very severe type of mental illness that already distorts your reality.
Yeah, your
right?
perception of
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, right. So if this guy, who's already like fighting with his own brain,
To remember what is actually
correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's really happening? What an easy target. What
Yeah.
an easy target
Well,
for this police department.
not only that, but on the recording of this interrogation, he can also be heard letting the officers know that he's under the influence of alcohol during this interrogation.
Oh God.
The detectives throughout the investigation just continued to ask him leading questions and giving him prompts to give him the answers to fit the crime scene. Often even telling him to change his answer in order to make it coincide with the evidence. So prosecutors' primary evidence at the trial was this confession and testimony, which a police lab analyst eventually later proven to be
Proved.
false. Proved to be false. Proved.
Proven?
The analyst also had testified that the semen that was found under the carpet on the victim's body in her vaginal and rectal swabs and several other places did not match Mr. George Allan's. He testified that the only antigens recovered from the fluid at the crime scene were A and H antigens, which could not exclude.
Yeah, I couldn't exclude him, but that doesn't
Couldn't
mean
exclude him.
Doesn't mean it can convict him either.
Right, exactly. So they did also question one of the victim's work colleagues, a woman by the name of Pamela Ann Richardson, and spoke to her at her home between 10 a.m. and 10:15 a.m. So for 15 minutes, they spoke to her.
Wow. Wow, what an extensive meeting.
Yeah. She said that she went to the victim's home to pick up some work materials. By the time she arrived, which also was just like a 15-minute window, the perpetrator must have already been inside the home because the victim didn't come to the door.
Ooh, God, it's scary.
So investigators for Pamela Ann Richardson used the highly unreliable tool of hypnosis to try to improve her memory.
In that 15 minutes that they talked to her?
Yeah. So, well, no, so that was the initial,
okay.
that was their initial
Okay,
conversation.
Like,
they brought her
gotcha.
in for the hypnosis to try to.
Like, damn, that's quick.
Okay, ma'am, over the phone.
Yeah.
Imagine we're together.
Yeah. Me when I talk to any man on the phone. So, yeah.
So they were just trying to hypnotize her to see whether or not she remembered if the victim had called out a name while knocking on the door. Like, I guess that they were trying to see if she called out the name of the killer, which I think is bizarre. Like, who?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
like,
would
that's
you do
weird.
that?
I mean, that's just assuming that, like, I mean, that would be assuming that she knew the guy,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, and as far as they know, she didn't know the guy they have in custody.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, what does that do for their
Do
case?
for
I don't know.
anything. The hypnosis session was not revealed to the defense or to the prosecutor, so they did not use it in the trial. Allen's first trial was deadlocked at a 10-2 in favor of acquittal. So 2 people were like, he's not the man. George
But
Allan,
10 people were like,
but
oh,
10
no,
people
but
were
he
like, no, it's definitely him. Beyond a reasonable doubt, it's definitely him. He did have an alibi, George Allan, which he
Are you kidding?
presented. And 3 witnesses testified that he was snowed in at his house.
3?
At the time of the murder, he was snowed in at home. 3 witnesses.
Okay, I cannot. That is okay, but this shit has happened so many times where they're just like, well, but I was literally on the moon at the time this happened. Yeah, but you confessed.
Yeah,
but you can literally see. Me
here I am on camera on the moon.
Going to the moon, and they're like, no, because you confessed, and it's like, yeah, okay, but couldn't there possibly be a coercion that took place? I mean, if you look at, like, it's so funny to me because I don't know where they find actually, I mean, I've been summoned for jury duty like 3 times in my life. 3 times they didn't want me because 3 times I was like, this sucks and I hate everything about the judicial system. And they're like, well, we're not going to pick her. But like, the people that they are picking must be people who don't really have any fucking clue.
Clue
of
what's going on.
Yeah, of what really can happen in, behind the doors of the fucking police department. I don't know.
We back the blue and...
Yeah. Or they don't really understand what beyond a shadow of a doubt means.
Yeah. No. So they did end up having another trial for George, being that the deadlock took place. And during his second trial, he was convicted on capital murder, rape, sodomy, first-degree burglary, and he was sentenced to 50 years for capital murder and 15 years consecutively on each of the other 3 charges, which would have resulted in him spending the rest of his life in prison.
Oh my God.
Using DNA evidence, which completely did prove George Allan Jr.'s innocence, he was exonerated on January 18th, 2013 in St. Louis, Missouri, after serving 30 years in prison.
Oh my God, that's such a huge chunk of your life.
I know.
think about it. I mean, we're lucky if we live to be in our 90s.
It's true.
You take away 30 years, like, you don't really have that much left.
You really don't.
Especially because those are, like, the good 30 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you start at 70 and go to 90, like, well, or I guess 60, it's, like, not that great. Because your body's falling apart.
You're just like, okay, well.
Yeah, you can't sit outside on the porch and chain smoke.
Yeah, it's true.
Like you did in your 20s.
Yeah. It was actually blood type evidence that was used to be able to get that exoneration for George Allan Jr., as well as, showing evidence that the confession was a false confession and the police had tunnel vision. And sadly, very sadly, this breaks my heart. On October 16th of 2016, George Allan Jr. passed away, luckily in the comfort of his home outside of St. Louis, Missouri, but he only was able to be free for the last 3 years of his life.
Oh my God. See, that's the thing that would, like, scare me, is, like, I go to prison for something I didn't do because, let's face it, I'm a coward. I really wouldn't do anything bad. Also, they don't serve the food I like in prison, so I'm not going to fucking go there. Anyways, on purpose, at least. And then I get out because I'm finally deemed innocent.
Yeah.
And then I fucking get hit by a truck
or
something.
Exactly. Like, no, I think about it all the time because sometimes, like, I wear fake, I think I've mentioned this before. I wear fake nails and fake eyelashes, and my hair falls out, like, pretty much in clumps.
Yes, me too.
But sometimes I'll be, like, peeling my eyelashes off and, like, throwing them on the ground somewhere.
Out
or, like,
the window down the highway.
Spitting my fake nails out. And then I'll think sometimes, like, if some random ass hair of mine lands accidentally, like, gets blown into a crime scene, or if somewhere that I've been, I've dropped an eyelash, then they could very easily convict me of murder.
I'm only wearing wigs from now on. I've had, like, I cannot take the risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We cannot be out here just willy-nilly shedding. Because it, like, really, I think about that too all the time. It's like, if I were to ever commit a crime, I would have to nair my whole body.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would nair my whole body. I wear like 17-inch heels, so people would think I was like 6 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And I would use a voice changer and pretend like I was a man.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. Then they would have to. The only thing I couldn't fix was like, how do I look skinny? Because ain't nothing gonna snatch this up, honey.
They have those, like, hyper realistic masks too that make it look like you're someone else.
Yeah.
Which, why are those allowed?
Okay, also, don't listen to our podcast and take our advice, or our ideas. And, like, rob a bank.
I know that we're incredibly smart and talented, but everything we say is for the purpose of knowledge,
entertainment,
for the victims, of course, but the rest of it's just hilarity. So don't try it.
Don't try it, because honestly, there's no guarantee it would work. Anyways, well, what about the victim? Was her case ever solved?
No, they are still looking for who did it, and I think it was probably one of the 3 people.
Yeah. It could have been the sex offender. They obviously thought it was the sex offender at first.
It's why they brought in George Allan.
Yeah. Okay, so my guy is actually pretty similar. His case is similar to George Allan's. This is the case of Nick Yarris. So Nick Yarris, just a little, like, backstory. Nick Yarris has been since his release from prison, he has garnished a lot of attention. His case was featured on several documentaries. He is on the Soft White Underbelly, which is a popular like docu-series on YouTube.
I was gonna say,
And
I feel like that name sounds
yeah,
familiar.
it is. He's done like a lot of good since he's gotten out of prison. He when he was first released, he had zero money because when you're released on parole, they usually like the system kind of helps you. They'll put you in like a halfway home
Yeah, give
to
you
make sure.
kind of a leg up a little bit to
Yeah,
get readjusted.
right. But when you're released as an innocent person, they
You
don't
don't
do
get
shit for
shit.
you. You don't get shit. It's he literally was like released from prison with like $5.30.
Oh
That was
my
it.
god.
I know, after like serving 21 years. And he was like,
Jesus.
can you imagine the inflation that happened within those 21
Yeah.
years? Like, yeah. So this is the story of Nick Yarris. On December 15th, 1981, Mrs. Linda Mae Craig, a mother of three, was kidnapped from the parking lot of the Tri-State Mall in Delaware near the Pennsylvania border. During the week prior to her abduction and murder, the 32-year-old Craig told her husband and coworkers about a man she believed had been watching her.
Oh god.
Yeah, she said she was afraid of him. So she had already like voiced concerns that there was some guy that was like creeping on her,
Yeah.
basically. Linda took the job at the kiosk selling glass-blown trinkets and figurines because the mall, even though it was in Delaware, was only a 10-minute drive from her home she shared with her husband and three children in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Linda's shift at the kiosk ended at 4, and by 4:05, she was in the parking lot headed towards her car to return home to her husband and children. Officials believe at this time Linda was abducted.
Oh
Her assailant
man.
hit her so hard she was literally knocked out of her shoes and wrestled into her own vehicle.
Jesus.
I know. Her kidnapper then drove her car 2 miles into the state of Pennsylvania, stabbed and sexually assaulted her behind a church, and then left her body somewhere outside in the snow.
Was
So this is
she
Pennsylvania, so it gets real
really cold?
snowy. Yeah.
Was she found behind the church or did they dump her elsewhere? Or do you
Yeah.
know?
She was found the next morning by these two teenagers, but before that, at approximately 7 p.m. that evening, Mrs. Craig's 1977 Chrysler Cordoba was found abandoned about 1.5 miles from the church in Chichester Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. 2 hours after she had left her job and with the motor still running and Linda's blood splattered
Oh my
hamburger.
god.
Sorry,
Hamburger?
handbag. Hamburger. Wow, blood splattered hamburger.
My
Horrible.
favorite.
I know. And Linda's blood splattered handbag still inside. Linda Craig's
Jesus.
body was found the next morning in the church parking lot by two teenage boys who had first mistaken her for a snow-covered mannequin. Her teeth had been broken and she had been stabbed at least 6
Oh my
times.
god.
I know. The church was less than 2 miles from her home. To me, that means that this man who she thought was following her or was creeping on her,
Was.
like, why would he drive her body to the same town that she lived in?
Right.
He must have lived in the same town as she did.
Yeah, he's probably been watching her for a
A
while.
while.
Knows
Um,
where she lives.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why the police. I mean, why are we figuring that out? Oh my God, we're just geniuses.
I know. We need to get a police job.
We really do. Nicholas James Yarris was born on May 18th, 1961 in southwest Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was one of 6 children of a lower middle class family, and both parents worked to make enough money for the household and often relied on Nick's grandmother, who also lived in the home, to watch over the children and take care of the chores while both parents helped bring in an income. One day in the spring of 1968, 7-year-old Nick stayed home from school because he had had a dentist appointment.
I
Feeling
don't
adventurous, what?
I don't like going to the dentist either. I'll take off a whole day.
Shit, I'll take off a whole year.
Yeah.
No, I can't afford that. Um, Feeling adventurous, Nick took his little dog Jocko to explore a wooded area in his neighborhood behind 74th Street. And while walking around the woods, Nick and Jocko stumbled upon another boy about 10 years older than Nick, who was also skipping class. Nick recognized the teen as he had seen him picking fights with older people in the neighborhood and just generally being like a violent and chaotic presence.
Older people?
Yeah, he would like this guy who was only like about 17 would like be very violent towards people in the neighborhood. He would be causing a lot of mischief and chaos, and he just was a trouble. I mean, he was a troubled teenager.
What the fuck?
Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Nick recalls the older boy was smoking a cigarette and offered Nick a drag. Nick, being terrified, he complied and said he remembered how dizzy the cigarette had made him feel.
That's
While he
Nick
was,
sick.
yeah, that is. While he was choking on the smoke, Nick felt the hand of the older boy grab his neck and push him backwards. He stumbled and fell, and while he was on the ground, Nick remembered the boy picking up a stone and hitting Nick hard over the head
Oh
with
my
it
god.
and knocking him unconscious.
What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
Why has this older kid not been arrested or taken in if already he's
Because Nick never told anybody about this, and you're about to learn why.
Oh, okay.
So when Nick came to, the older boy was pulling up his pants.
Oh god.
And even though Nick didn't fully understand at the time, he later came to terms with the fact that he had been sexually assaulted while he was unconscious.
Oh my
The older
God.
boy immediately started threatening Nick not to tell his parents, and that he had been hit by a shopping cart and it pushed his body into a wall, and that's how he got this big, huge contusion on his head. Nick complied and, was like, I won't tell anybody, and waited for his assailant to leave before he could even move. Once he was gone, Nick realized his dog, Jocko, was too, and he started back towards the road, calling out for his dog. An older woman saw Nick running down a neighborhood street and called after him to get home because he was bleeding, I guess from the gash in his head.
Jesus.
When he made it home, his mother took him to the hospital, where he was diagnosed with optic nerve damage caused by swelling in his brain. There was a chance that if the swelling didn't go down, Nick would lose sight in one of his eyes.
Oh,
so
fuck.
Yeah, so they monitored him. Like, this boy hit him so hard that it caused frontal
Swelling
lobe
in the brain and
pain.
oh,
Yeah, he was only 7. He was a 7-year-old kid.
God.
Following the attack, Nick had to wear corrective glasses, and he went from being right-handed to left-handed.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't know that could happen.
Yeah. In a 2023 Soft White Underbelly interview, Nick said everything in his brain was scattered. In that same interview, he also recalled suffering from night terrors and how he would oftentimes hit himself in the leg so he wouldn't be afraid of pain if he were to ever encounter his attacker again.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so he really struggled with that whole... and back, even now, but more so back then, this was in the 60s, I guess, or no, 70s, sexual assault of boys just wasn't talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, I still feel like it carries with it such a stigma of, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Right. Nick confessed that throughout the years that followed, he tried to tell his father what had happened to him by making up stories about fictional characters who lived on a farm, and he would describe things that actually happened to him happening to the characters in hopes that his father would somehow realize that the characters in the stories were actually Nick. But it was never successful. His father never really caught on to it,
Yeah.
As Nick grew older, his behavior became erratic. And by the time Nick was 14, he was an alcoholic, drinking and smoking pot. And then shortly after, he started taking pills. And then by the time Nick was 18, he was addicted to methamphetamine.
Oh, my God. Poor Nick. My God.
I know. No, shit like that really does fuck up.
Yeah.
people for the rest of their lives. That's why sexual assault is such a horrific crime.
Yeah.
To me, it's one of the most horrific things you could do to somebody
No,
else.
it really is. It really
Yeah,
is.
because it lingers.
Yeah, it's mentally scarring. Like
Yeah.
physically, your wounds heal, but
Emotionally,
emotionally and
yeah,
mentally, no.
no. While on meth, he stole his first car and drove it all the way to Florida, checked into a hotel room, and started throwing all the furniture out of the hotel window and into the street. He was arrested and then placed into a psychiatric care facility where he was diagnosed with aphasia.
What is
Aphasia
that?
is a disorder. It's a disorder of the brain that affects a person's ability to communicate, write, and understand both written and verbal communication. So he couldn't communicate correctly, and he couldn't understand what people were saying
Trying
to
to
him.
say, yeah.
Yeah, if you remember, I don't know if you know this, but Bruce Willis actually was diagnosed with aphasia recently, and he's been kind of
Yeah, he's
been dealing with
struggling
that.
so
Uh-huh.
hard.
Yeah. The doctors explained that he was not able to participate in any form of chemical stimulants because it caused his aphasia to flare up.
Mm.
So basically they had done these brain scans while he was in this facility. I remember him talking about his doctor at the facility was this Cuban doctor, and this Cuban doctor was just brilliant. And he was like, took the time to like really sit Nick down and explain to him what aphasia was. So basically his aphasia was caused by this brain damage that he had had sustained as a child
Yeah.
with that incident. And when you take speed or methamphetamines or any kind of stimulant, it breaks down the proteins in the brain that like helps with that part of his brain with communication.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was taking it, when he was addicted to it, was like strung out on it, it completely deteriorated all those proteins. And so that's why he like was freaking out, because he couldn't it irritated his aphasia, which he
That
didn't even
makes
know he
complete
had.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brain injuries alone can cause so much, can wreak so much havoc. And then whenever
Yeah.
you add in the like alcohol and I mean that all
Yeah.
like messes with your chemical, like
All
any
of it.
chemicals in your brain, and creates even just a temporary imbalance that with further use changes into a more permanent thing.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people with brain injuries or with mental illness, they often do self-medicate with substances
Yeah.
because even though it does them more harm in the long run, even, mentally, it's it momentarily like soothes.
Helps to cope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick was scared sober by his diagnosis and made his way back to Philly, where he eventually found a job, found a girl, and began to lead a relatively normal life until the partying caught up with him and he decided to partake in meth again.
Oh man.
He couldn't afford his addiction, and eventually on December 19th, 1981, 4 days after the discovery of Linda Craig's body, Nick stole another car. While he was in possession of the stolen car, he was stopped by the Philadelphia Highway Patrol on a routine traffic violation. The stop turned into a violent confrontation, and Yarris, that's Nick, ended up discharging the officer's handgun, which caused him to be arrested for attempted murder of a police officer,
God.
which in the state of Pennsylvania at the time was a 25 to life sentence if found guilty. So Nick was 20 years old at this time. He was scared to death, and he was facing a 25 years to life. He had no more narcotics, and Nick was going through withdrawal, and all he could think was, you're not going to live unless you get out of here. And that was when his brain shut down and he stopped thinking logically. While he was in jail for the attempted murder of a police officer, Nick saw a newspaper with a story about Linda May Craig, a woman who had been kidnapped in Delaware near the border of Pennsylvania, raped and murdered in her car. He had an idea. What if he said he knew the killer and plea bargained his way out of prison? So he gave the prison officers the name of an associate whom he thought had just died of an overdose. Only he hadn't died. It was his brother who had died, and the man was still alive, and he had an alibi.
Oh my
So
God.
essentially, Yarris told the authorities that he had just made the story up because he was desperate, but they refused to believe him. And they actually charged him with the rape and murder
Wow.
of Linda May Craig. I know. Because, like, here's the thing is, like, he obviously, I mean, he's a meth addict. He's got brain injury, a
Yeah.
traumatic brain injury. I mean, he's
Yeah,
not thinking
he's
great,
not
you
thinking
know?
correctly. Right.
No.
Logic's just not his strong suit right now.
No. And he like at some point he had like guessed he had just guessed some things that were correct about her murder, but I don't know. It never gave the details of the things that he could like that he had guessed correctly on. It probably, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and who knows if that's even like true or not. I don't know. When Nick Yarris was tried for the attempted murder of the officer in April of 1982, he was acquitted. In a strange way, this may have been his undoing. There was an outcry in court. The district attorney, Barry Gross, screamed at me, "You'll never leave this county alive," Yarris had recalled. In June of 1982, Nick Yarris discovered that the prosecution was now seeking the death penalty for the sexual assault and murder of Linda Craig. And Barry Gross was going to be the prosecutor.
Wow.
Yeah, he was fucked. Conventional serological testing was performed on the rape kit, the results of which could not exclude Yarris. That was very similar
Yeah.
to
To
your
George
case.
Allan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The prosecution showed the jury a photograph of a pair of gloves found in the victim's car and said that Yarris' fingerprints were never found at the scene because he was wearing these gloves. But the gloves were never disclosed to the defense for cross-examination, and they didn't even fit Yarris.
Really?
Yeah. Along with the biological evidence, prosecutors relied on the testimony of a jailhouse informant and identifications by the victim's coworkers who identified Yarris as a man seen harassing the victim before her murder in 1981.
And how
In
long had
1980,
it been at this point since
a
these
year.
witnesses? A year?
Yeah. In 1982, Yarris was convicted of murder, rape, and abduction, and he was sentenced to death.
Oh my God.
So in Pennsylvania, and I think what kind of happens a lot, probably in Texas too, and any of these capital punishment states, they put you in solitary confinement on death row, which is pretty like psychologically like taxing on you because you're not allowed to talk to anybody.
Right.
There was times where he would like recall them hosing him down if he were to talk to himself. So
really,
they're very, yeah. So Nick Yarris was put in solitary confinement on death row, but still Yarris proclaimed his innocence, leading to a long struggle for DNA testing of the crime scene evidence. In 1989, he became one of Pennsylvania's first death row inmates to demand post-conviction DNA testing to prove his innocence.
Good for him.
I know. Successive rounds of DNA testing of various pieces of evidence followed throughout the 1990s, all failed to produce conclusive results. I know. Well, I mean, like, because back in the 90s, even though they had it, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. With hope waning, Yarris succumbed to his fate and wrote the governor of Pennsylvania to request a swifter execution, which pushed his lawyers to try for one more request for DNA testing. So, like, he was like, "I've had it. I don't want to be in confinement anymore. I just want to die. Just kill me
immediately."
Yeah. So a breakthrough occurred in 2003 when Dr. Edward Blake conducted a final round of testing on the gloves found in the victim's car. Fingernail scrapings from the victim and the remaining spermatozoa obtained from the decedent's underpants. Significantly, the profiles obtained from the gloves and the spermatozoa evidence appeared to originate from the same person. On July 2nd, 2003, Nicholas Yarris was excluded from all biological material connected with the crime.
Thank God.
Yeah. Thank Dr. Blake.
Thank you, Dr. Blake.
Mm-hmm. On September 3rd, 2003, based on Dr. Blake's results, the court vacated Yarris's conviction and he became the 140th person in the United States to be exonerated by post conviction DNA testing, the
Hell yeah.
13th DNA exoneration from death row. Due, however, to a 1985 conviction for escape with connected charges in Florida, Yarris still had a 30-year sentence on his record and he remained in jail.
Damn.
But only for one more year.
Okay.
So
Well,
on
good.
January, actually not even a year, on January 15th, 2004, Florida reduced his sentence to 17 years, time served, and granted his release.
Awesome.
I know. The following day, Nicholas Yarris was finally freed from a Pennsylvania prison after spending over 21 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit. Even though Nicholas Yarris' exoneration was a huge win, not only for Nicholas, but for justice, the reality of his freedom means a pursuit of justice for Linda Craig, and her family is now starting again at ground zero. As of 2021, the murder and sexual assault of Linda Mae Craig remains unsolved.
Wow.
These two cases are very similar.
Yeah. No, they are. They're really similar.
Very similar. The only difference is that I think, well, I mean, they're both men who suffered from some kind of like
Mental
mental,
impairment.
yeah. And then they both were just kind of like, at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I mean, although Nicholas did commit a crime, he wasn't like killing, and he wasn't violent towards anybody.
Right. Exactly.
It's just really interesting that, you know, that they're both so similar
I know.
as far as like everything. And I mean, like with Nick Yarris's case, I mean, so his mother and father, they had 6 children, but like I think there was 3 boys, and all 3 of the boys were, one of them OD'd on their couch.
Oh my God.
The other one, I believe, was I forget what happened. He was an alcoholic, and like I think he died of like liver failure or something. And then Nick was in prison, so like all this other stuff with their other sons, while
Yeah.
this was going on with Nick, and like really, oh, and Nick. But I will say this about Nick's mother, which I didn't really talk about in that segment, but Nick's mother actually, she had drawn out the complete like crime scene. She drew it all out and was like, there is no way my son could have committed this crime.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried to submit all of her findings and her research as like evidence to the court after he was convicted,
They wouldn't.
and like
take
they
it.
just wouldn't. No,
Yeah.
no. So she had always maintained that he was innocent as well. And I think that for a mother who had already lost 2 sons to death, and then
Yeah.
losing her other son to like the system, she was probably pretty devastated. I don't know if she was alive when he was let out.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that she was, just so
hope
that she
so.
could, yeah, just so that she could see it.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
I know.
Well-
It's such, I think this is going to be a really heavy season.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a heavy season.
Like,
So you better just strap in, girl.
when we discussed doing this, I was like, this is gonna be good because like all the people are, released. But now that we've done the first episode, I'm like, poor George got 3 years, not even 3 years,
Yeah.
to live his life as a free man before he passed away. Nick's family, like, they already have suffered hardships, and Nick himself, like, just what a hard life to live, and then to have something like this, which of course, he's out and he's free, and that's great, but at the same time, like, look at all of the look at all of the suffering that's gone on.
I mean, and not just that, but like even the victims, they never got justice either.
Yeah.
Like even if you do go to prison and you're exonerated, you still have that stigma of being in prison,
Yeah, exactly. Like, that
especially for
does not
21 fucking
go
years. Yeah.
away.
Yeah, I think Nick talks about it cuz he eventually got married, but he was solitary confined for 21 years on
Yeah.
death row,
Yeah.
and he couldn't touch anybody else, he couldn't talk to anybody else. And so he said sometimes he just has to be by himself, and like I mean
It's like a
that's pretty
comfort
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty amazing that that's the only thing I mean, I'm sure there's other kinds of things that he has, but that's the only thing that he really was willing to share, and that's his business. But yeah, that's pretty amazing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I haven't been in confinement and I want my space all the time,
Yeah.
you know? So, all right. I am going to do a missing persons. Um
Okay.
so this week's person is Jonathan D. Simmons. He's 38 years old, and he has been missing for a while. His last known whereabouts was a homeless encampment behind Sam's Club in Austin, in South Austin. The last time he had contacted anyone um, was a while ago. It doesn't say when. He does have problems with his kidneys, and he's also suffering from PTSD.
Oh, God.
His mother is not physically able to search for him, and she is asking for help at this time. He was incarcerated for a little while, and I believe the last known people to have any contact with him, confirmed contact with him, was on January 6, 2024, and it was the Austin Police Department. So he was last seen seeking shelter around 2710 East Cesar Chavez Street in Austin, Texas. I will post a picture of him. And I guess if you see him, the best way to contact or to know the best thing to do is to contact
His mom.
his mom, or is just the Austin Police Department Missing Persons Unit, and or you can reach out to Austin Missing Persons and surrounding areas. That is the nonprofit that we are currently working with. So, for missing people in the Austin area.
If you do see him, please do, especially since his mom is physically not capable of searching
for
herself.
Him. Yeah.
Please do reach out as soon as you can.
So let's get him home.
Yeah.
To his mom. And that will conclude our first episode for season 3.
For season 3, sweet thing.
Yeah. And thanks everybody who has continued to listen to us, even though we've been on this long ass break, but we needed it.
We did.
We did. Could you imagine being with us without nonstop? I don't think so.
I think that you'd want some solitary confinement.
I think people would pay us to not be on the air, actually, if we were on all the time.
I do too.
Yeah. They would be locking themselves up in solitary confinement just to get away from us. If you are new to this podcast, if you did just find us recently, if this is the first season that you're listening to, you can follow us on Instagram.
It's Nosey Nancies.
You can also follow us on Facebook and join our group on Facebook.
It's Nosey Nancies Podcast.
We are also on TikTok, which, by the way, we are pretty active, kind of active on there. And that's also Nosey Nancies Podcast. You can join our Patreon if you want to support us, or if you're thinking about supporting us, or even if you just want to go in and peep a little bit. We do have a Patreon. It's Nosey Nancies Podcast.
We do post bonus episodes for the Patreon. Although we haven't recently, so we're going to start back on that.
Yeah, we got really busy. we do have really good episodes on that on our Patreon, and it's only like $5 a month. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, just don't think, just do, and then listen to the bonus episodes as your little reward.
Yeah, no, Jasmine does a really good job at telling all these stories that have happened.
Well, thank
We
you.
also, so we did, while we were on break, we did start a book club, and the first one was okay. The second one sucked. So we're tentatively thinking about restarting that. Maybe we'll get more into it as the season. We'll see how the numbers go.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But for now, we are skipping the month of September.
September.
Well, yeah. I guess it would be
October.
September's read, October's book. So
yeah. But we do have we have a private Discord for our book club, so maybe that can be part of something bigger. If you want to join that, maybe we can also just discuss the podcast itself on there.
Be part of your world, Little Mermaid type of deal.
Type of thing, yeah.
Yeah. There is also a website in which you can listen to the podcasts, see some photos of victims, and also reach out to us. Did I say contact us?
No, but I love that.
Okay. Well, you can contact us.
I love that you can. Also. Yeah.
Now,
so
don't
if you want to
judge...
What? Oh.
Don't judge our...
Well, let's don't say our, because I have nothing to do
Don't judge
with
our
website.
domain, because until we get bigger, I don't want to pay for one. But if you want to visit, it's noseynancies.wixsite.com/www.noseynancies.com.
Maybe we'll just... I think is it on our LinkedIn? I think I put it on our LinkedIn.
Did you really? Okay.
Or not LinkedIn. I'm sorry.
I didn't know we had a LinkedIn.
We are not those people. I meant our link tree. I think it's on our link tree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you don't want to remember 40 pages worth of HTTP speak, then visit our link tree.
I would love to do listener stories again. So if you have a story, I mean, we haven't really discussed it, but if we get people who just randomly send us stories through our website, we would do that. I think.
Yeah, we would read it.
Cool. Yeah, we would read it out. Yeah, for sure. Also, if you do join our Patreon, you will get a shout out from us on our regular podcast episodes. So, I don't know.
Just some extra. You want to be famous?
Let's calm down a little bit. Calm down on the famous, because if you just want your cute little name coming out of our sweet little mouths, then
yeah, worth it
for sure. All right, we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Ciao.